Okay, let's find it. Teitzei, Torah reading. I think this should be it. Yes. Okay, let's start at the beginning. I'm going to go through kind of like, boom, boom, boom. We're going to go through a bunch of different things and share hopefully some lessons. Okay, number one, first mitzvah of today's reading is regarding army duty. The Torah says when a man takes a new wife, this is Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 5. When a man takes a new wife, he shall not go out into the army, nor shall he be subjugated to anything associated with it, not even peeling potatoes. He shall remain free for his home for 1 year and delight his wife whom he has taken. I love that line. Love it. So first of all, if you just got married, first year, we call it Shana Rishona. First year, no army obligations, no danger, not only enjoying your wife, enjoying your spouse. And not only that, look at the obligation on the husband. Delight his wife, make her happy. You got a year? No, sorry, that doesn't sound right. Not only for 1 year, for your whole life, but it starts with the solid first year. So that's the first obligation. Okay, next mitzvah. I think that's a very important insight in general into relationships, marriage, and priorities. Okay, next. This is regarding a loan. And sometimes when it comes to a loan, people take collateral for a loan. So the Torah tells us something that should not be taken as collateral for a loan. One shall not take the lower or the upper millstone as security for a loan because he is taking a life as security. So this is referring to a situation where somebody earns their livelihood using the millstone. I guess they're grinding wheat into flour or grinding whatever it is with the old millstone. So the Torah says you cannot, if you lent that person money, you can't take their tools of earning a living as the security because essentially you're robbing them of the ability to make money, which is probably going to work against the loan anyway, because if you want them to pay back, you probably want them to be earning money. But the point here is that you got to have compassion even as you want to ensure that you are okay financially. You, the lender, are okay. You cannot wipe out the person that you are lending. Again, compassionate justice. So there's justice. Take a security, take a collateral, but not the millstone that he needs for business. Okay, now it moves on to kidnapping. And again, it kind of seems like random things, and maybe there's connections, but there's a lot of different mitzvot, so we're going to try to get as much variety as possible. Next, if a man is discovered kidnapping any person from among his brothers of the children of Israel and treats him as a slave and sells him, right? So human trafficking, kidnapping, trafficking, what's the punishment? That thief shall die. It's a capital crime. Human trafficking is a capital crime. So that you shall clear out the evil from among you. Okay, next. Be cautious regarding the lesion of Tsurat. If you recall, Tsurat is like that leprosy type skin affliction that's not a skin affliction, but it afflicts the skin, but it's not coming from a biological problem, it's coming from a spiritual problem, typically speaking negatively about someone else. This was only true in biblical times when they had a temple and all these other things, but today it doesn't affect us that way. But anyway, be cautious regarding the lesion of Tsurat to observe meticulously, and you shall do according to all that the Levite priests instruct you. As I've commanded them, so shall you observe to do. And so the message here is no fooling around with the lesion. Let's see if Rashi points out something interesting. Yes, Rashi points out, what does it mean to be cautious regarding the lesion? Rashi says that you do not remove any of the signs of uncleanliness by peeling off the skin, for example, and that you do not cut off the baheret, the bright spot. A person might say, I don't want to undergo the process of dealing with the spiritual underlying conditions. Let me just peel off the tsaras. Let me just, put a Neutrogena or some other, whatever. Let me just deal with the skin and not deal with the real cause. Let me just deal with the symptom and not the actual malady. The Torah says, don't fool around with tsarat. Recognize that it's a deeper condition, there's a deeper issue, and address it. Don't ignore it. Don't brush it over. Don't conceal it. Don't put a Band-Aid over it. Get it fixed. Spiritually get it fixed. Okay, that's the message about tsarat. Let's get back inside. Now we talk about Miriam. Now we talk about the sister of Moses and Aaron, Miriam, the prophetess, the one who watched Moses floating on the basket by the Nile River, the one who led the Jewish women in song after the splitting of the sea. The Torah says right here, verse number 9, again, chapter 24, verse number 9, Zachar, this is one of the 6 remembrances that we recite every single day after prayers. Remember what the Lord your God did to Miriam on the way when you went out of Egypt. Yep. What did God do to Miriam? God afflicted Miriam with the aforementioned Tsurat from the previous verse. Why? Because she spoke negatively about her brother Moses, saying to Aaron, her brother, "Ooh, did you hear that Moses separated from his wife? What's going on?" So there were rumors, there was discussion, and instead of speaking to him head on, instead of Miriam speaking to Moses head on about a concern that she had, she went to her other brother and spoke about him, and so she became afflicted with Tsurat, and the people had to wait for 7 days until she was healed. What's the message? Again, I told you that our sages correlate Tsurat with speaking negatively about someone else. How do they know this connection? Look at the juxtaposition between these 2 verses. The first verse, verse 8, talks about caring for the Tsurat issue, and then it says, remember what God did to Miriam. And the message is that what God did to Miriam, giving Tsurat, was because of the negative language that she spoke, and therefore we know that Tsurat comes from speaking ill of someone else. Does that make sense what I just said? The connection? Yes? Someone nod or thumbs up? All right, I see some nods. Matt, I can't tell if you're nodding or if you're running. See, that's the problem. No, I'm kidding. I saw a nod.
Dodging bees.
Oh, dodging bees. Seriously? All right, well, be careful out there. Be careful. My grandfather tells me a story when he was a kid. When he was young, he went to camp in the Catskill Mountains, New York. And he went over, he was like exploring the woods by the campsite, either alone or with a friend. I don't remember the details. And he saw something, and he didn't know what it was, so he threw a rock at it. Turns out it was a wasp's nest. He threw a rock at this wasp, and they started coming after him, and he ran, and they got him. It was a whole deal. I don't remember the exact details of the story, but I know they came after him. So, be careful out there. Be careful. All right, next. Take a look at verse number 10. Rapid fire. This is like potpourri of mitzvot. When you lend your fellow any item, you shall not enter his home to take his security. You cannot repo, right? You cannot go in and take a security from inside his house. Rather, verse 11, you shall stand outside, and the man to whom you are extending the loan shall bring the security to you outside. Keep the boundaries. Keep the dignity of the borrower. Do not come in, oh, I'm going to take your security. Wait outside like a mensch. Let him bring it to you. Even though you lent him money, it doesn't give you full rights over his life. Be a mensch. Take a look at verse 12. Even better. Even more just powerful. And if he is a poor man, if you lent money to a poor man, you shall not lie down to sleep with his security. In other words, if he gave you a security, if he gave you garments as a security that he needs to sleep with, to go to sleep wearing, you cannot keep that security. Rather, look at verse 13. You shall return the security to him by sunset, so that he may lie down to sleep in his garment, and he will bless you. And it will be counted for you as a merit before the Lord your God. Imagine if this guy is so poor, the only security he could give you for his loan is his pajamas. The Torah says, you give him back his pajamas every night. So you might say, so what kind of security is that? The whole point of a security is that I'm holding something that you need, so that if you want it back, you have to repay the loan. But if I give you back your pajamas every night, what kind of security is that? There's no answer. There's no answer for that. The response is, you're right, it's not a good security. But the guy has to go to sleep in his pajamas. So you give him back the pajamas. The Torah here reveals its compassion. Yes, the fellow has an obligation to pay you back. Yes, you have an obligation to take security, to take a collateral. Absolutely. But if he needs it, be a mensch, give it back. Don't be so cruel. Don't be so heartless. Don't put justice in front of another human being. Does that make sense? Mark, what you got?
Not exactly.
Okay,
Who
talk.
Who would want to take anyone's pajamas for security? It goes away to the Goodwill, so.
Right. I don't know. I'm just saying that the Torah gives a scenario. Whether it's a literal scenario or it's kind of like it brings up a principle. The idea here is, see, you would think, I don't mean you, but I would think, you and I would think that a security is a security. The whole point of a security is I'm holding onto your stuff until you give me back my money. So I trust you, but I'm holding on to your security. I'm not letting it go. The Torah says certain scenarios, if he needs it, give it back. But that breaks the whole security. All right. So let it be broken, but let the guy sleep. It's a powerful, once again, the Torah's compassion. When discussing the Torah's view on the economy, I love the phrase that I've heard before used by some philosophers to say that the Torah system is compassionate capitalism. So it's capitalistic by nature. It's not socialism. It's not communism. It's capitalistic. It's capitalism with a heart. With mandating us to take care of the other. Mandating us, not just it's a good deed, you have to give. You have to give tzedakah, you have to give a loan. You have to give back the security. So there's a compassion that's built in. We don't leave it up to the individual if they're in a good mood. Well, hold on, 1 second. The Torah is not like forcing anybody and handcuffing anybody. So it is a free choice, obviously. But the Torah gives it as an obligation, not as goodwill or a good deed. Okay, reading number 7. Here we go. This is the laws of business and paying your workers on time. You shall not, verse 14, chapter 24 of Deuteronomy, 7th reading. You shall not withhold the wages of a poor and destitute hired worker, of your brothers or of your strangers who are in your land within your city. So whether Jew or non-Jew, you are not allowed to withhold the wages. If somebody does work, you got to pay them. In fact, you have to pay them on time. Look at verse 15. You shall give him his wage on his day, and not let the sun set over it. For he is poor, and he risks his life for it, so that he should not cry out to the Lord against you, so that there shouldn't be sin upon you. In other words, if you don't pay this fellow, and the person goes home hungry, then he's going to cry out to God, and God's not going to be happy. So make sure you pay your worker. Make sure you do the right thing. Obviously, if the agreement is every week or every 2 weeks or every month, then you pay then. But if it's a day laborer and the person's relying on that food, on that money to eat or to whatever it is, you got to pay him. Obviously, this is presupposing that they did the work that they're supposed to do. If they didn't do the work, that's another conversation, and that's negligent work or whatever, dangerous work or not shoddy work. That's another conversation. But if they did the work, you got to pay him. Okay, verse 16. Justice, more justice conversations. Fathers shall not be put to death because of sons. Whew. All right. I'm joking. Nor shall sons be put to death because of fathers. In other words, no one should take the fall for someone else or be held accountable for someone else. Each man shall be put to death for his own transgression. Now, by the way, it doesn't mean like we're looking for people to execute. Each man shall be put to death. No. It means in general, right, a person's punishment is their own and not someone else's. Next, you shall not pervert the judgment of a stranger or an orphan, and you shall not take a widow's garment as security for a loan. So, perverting the judgment of a stranger or an orphan, you might say, well, who's going to know about the stranger or the orphan? Who's going to care? So let them suffer more. God forbid. No, that's not okay. Don't take a widow's garment as security because she needs the clothing. Next, verse 18. You shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Therefore I command you to do this thing. Look at that. You were the stranger. You were the slave. You were the one that was downtrodden. And God says, I had compassion and I schlepped you out. I rescued you. So therefore, always be compassionate to the one that needs our compassion. Next, when you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, this is called shikha. You forgot your sheaf. You forgot some food, a bundle of food. You shall not go back to take it. It shall be left for the stranger, the orphan, and the widow, so that the Lord your God will bless you in all that you do. Again, we care about those that are a little less fortunate than ourselves. We care about everybody, especially those that need a little extra care, that need a little extra caring about. This is a mitzvah that comes by accident. You forgot the sheaf. You didn't intend to give tzedakah. You forgot it. The Torah says, you forgot it. It's a sign. Leave it in the field. Leave it in the field and let them collect it. Let them take it. It's going to go to a good cause. That's a way to do the mitzvah tzedakah without even intending to do it. Next, verse 20. When you beat your olive tree, you shall not deglorify it by picking all its fruit after you. Rather, it shall be left for the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. So don't collect all the stuff. Leave some for others to collect. It's a generosity. I mean, what else do you call these laws of the Torah other than trying to instill within us a generosity, a kindness, a compassion? We should care for the other, not just for ourselves. When you pick the grapes of your vineyard, verse 21, you shall not glean after you. In other words, don't clear out all of it. Rather, it shall be left for the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. Leave some grapes on the vine for those that need. You shall remember once again that you were a slave. Once again, the Torah says, you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Therefore, I command you to do this thing. It's so beautiful. It's really so beautiful to see the extent to which the Torah tries to instill within us the care and concern for another human being. Because you and I could live our lives and only care about ourselves and our immediate families and be like, look, if someone else is struggling, not my problem. Not my problem. Let them deal with it, or let them find someone else to deal with it, or someone that cares. But I got my own stuff to worry about. And how easy is it, say it correctly, as a question, rhetorical question or whatever, how easy is it to fall into that trap of only caring about ourselves? The Torah says, not kosher behavior. It's not okay to only think of ourselves. We have to care about the person that we lent money to. Not take certain collateral, not keep it, right, overnight. We have to care about the person that's a day laborer, that relies on that money to support their family, to feed their family tonight for dinner. Got to pay them on time. You have to care about the person that has a court case and no one cares, no one knows them. And it's easy to say, whatever, who cares? No, you have to care. It's easy to not think about the less fortunate as we're picking the grapes or olives from our fields. The Torah says, be compassionate, care about the other. All right, verse 20, chapter 25 of Deuteronomy. Well, let me check in. Does all this make sense? I mean, it's all pretty straightforward. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Let's continue. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's really good to see what our tradition tells us about how to be. Okay, if there's a quarrel between men, and they approach the tribunal, and the judges judge them, and they acquit the innocent one and condemn the guilty one, it shall be, if the guilty one has incurred the penalty of lashes, this means, some sort of corporal punishment, that the judge shall make him lean over and flog him in front of him, commensurate with his crime and number. He shall flog him with 40 lashes. Lashes he shall not exceed, lest he give him a much more severe flogging than these 40 lashes. Your brother will be degraded before your eyes. Again, even in a case where you need to, there needs to be punishment, you don't go overboard. And you don't go more than 40. In fact, you don't go more than 39, according to our sages. 40 is already over the limit. The point is, you do whatever needs to be done, but not more than that. Now, for our modern sensibility, the idea of lashes and flogging may fly against that and may seem strange, it may seem cruel and brutal. But I guess I'll ask the question. I asked this when I taught the course Crime and Consequence, the course on criminal justice reform. Ask a person sitting in prison and ask them if they would rather get, a little klep, little flogging for 5 minutes and be done and have your punishment and go home, or sit for 12 to 18 months or 2 years or 5 years. I would be interested to know the answer. But the question is, in our sensibilities, say, oh, no, we don't do that, that's brutal. So what do? We lock human beings away in a cage. Because that's allegedly more humane. Again, I understand the question about corporal punishment and about the lashes. I get it. It's uncomfortable for me as well. But the way I think about it is, not necessarily are the ways that we consider more compassionate, indeed more compassionate. Okay. Mark, what do you think? Would you take 12 months or the lashes? What are you going to take?
I think 40 lashes could kill you.
No, but not the ones that could kill you. That's the whole point of the Torah. You're right. 40 lashes from, yes. The Torah is saying exactly that. You don't give those types of lashes. Even the lashes have to be with compassion. Not only out of concern of the medical care, but to make sure that they're not going to be degraded before your eyes. That means that it can't even be, it's not meant to humble them. It's meant they should feel some pain. Look, listen, I can't even articulate, necessarily the rationale behind it. But I can tell you what it's not supposed to do. It's not supposed to kill them. It's not supposed to really hurt them. And it's not supposed to degrade them in your eyes. So 40 is not the same 40 as we might think. Anyway, I saw you with like a wistful look or something. I wasn't sure what you were thinking. But now I know. All right, Mark, I won't give you the lashes. I was debating. All right, I won't. You're a good guy anyway. You get only, post-corona, only hugs, no lashes. By the way, today lashes mean something else, right? Lashes could be extensions and a whole, a thing. But that's not what they meant, give them 40 lashes. It was a little bit of a different thing. Okay, next. You shall not muzzle an ox when it is threshing the grain. When it's threshing the grain, it might want to eat something. If you muzzle, it's torture. It's like a kid in a candy shop and you can't eat anything. Right? It's not fun. Again, compassion for the animal. All of these mitzvot in rapid fire, they're all about compassion. Next, if your brothers reside together and one of them dies having no son, the dead man's wife shall not marry an outsider. Rather, her husband's brother shall be intimate with her, making her a wife for himself, thus performing the obligation of a husband's brother with her. This is called yibum. Yibum means that if a husband passes away, the wife is left, she doesn't have a child, so then the brother of the deceased husband has a mitzvah to marry her and not leave her a widow. In general, back in the day, it was hard when a woman was a widow. It was hard to find another husband. And plus, the husband that passed away didn't have the opportunity to have a child. In this case, didn't have a child, and he doesn't have a legacy. So the brother, we say, keep it in the family. The brother should marry her, ideally. Look, it doesn't have to. She can also say no, but that would be the first option. And it will be that the eldest brother who performs the levirate marriage, or whatever, the brother, if she can bear, will succeed in the name of... if she can bear. I think that means if she wants, if she can tolerate the guy, the brother-in-law, right? The other. So, will succeed in the name of his deceased brother, so that the deceased brother's name shall not be obliterated from Israel. So again, if you keep it in the family, so to speak, if she marries after her husband dies, the brother of the husband, and then has a child, at least it'll be the same family, the same legacy. But if the man does not wish to take his brother's wife, the brother's wife shall go up to the gate, to the elders, and say, my husband's brother has refused to perpetuate his brother's name in Israel. He does not wish to perform the obligation of a husband's brother with me. Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak to him, and he shall stand up and say, I do not wish to take her. Which, by the way, is not nice. It's not nice. She's in a vulnerable position. This guy's the brother. The brother should really marry her, the Torah says. That's the ideal. You don't want to? We're not going to let you easy off the hook. Then the brother's wife shall approach him before the eyes of the elders and remove his shoe from his foot, and she shall spit before his face, not into his face, but on the ground, and answer him and say, thus shall be done to the man who will not build up his brother's household. In other words, shame on you, it's a disgrace. And that family shall be called in Israel the family of the one whose shoe was removed. The one whose shoe was removed. It's a mitzvah. Again, you have to understand this in context also. Back in the day, a woman was, without a husband, it was harder than it is today. Just based on the reality 3,300 years ago. It was difficult. It was difficult. Talking about support and work and financially and everything. And a widow, it was hard to get remarried. The Torah says, you're the brother. Have compassion. Marry her. Give her a child, right? Build a legacy of your deceased brother. Marry her. You don't want to? It's not nice. It's not nice. So you do a process. You take off a shoe. There's spitting involved, and it's called chalitza. Yibum is the levirate marriage, and when he refuses, it's called chalitza, the removal of the shoe. All right.
May I ask a question, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is probably very obvious, but what if the brother is married?
Well, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Not such an obvious question at all. In Torah law, a man can have more than one wife. That would not be a deal breaker in biblical law. In rabbinic law, it's an automatic chalitza. It's an automatic no, because you can't have more than one wife in rabbinic law. In biblical law, it would be theoretically possible.
Okay.
So that's not an immediate off the hook, in biblical law. But we don't operate on strict Torah law. We operate through the rabbinic lens, and therefore it would be now off limits. Not a possibility.
Okay. This may be too much, and maybe it's not there. But is there kind of a spiritual thing? Since this isn't kosher, doing that isn't kosher. Is there something else that we're supposed to get from a brother continuing the line, the family continuing?
Yeah, I hear you. I think that that in absence of, actually marrying her, let's say he's already married, and today we don't do that. So what do you do? So yeah, it would be support in all different ways: financial support, emotional support, help, getting her back on her feet, whatever it is. It would be support in any way possible. Without the marriage piece of it, it would be support in any way possible and every way possible. But yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Sure. No, it's good questions. Okay. I think I need to toggle around. Oh, it's getting late. I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention to the time. I was carried away with all these interesting cases. So, here we go. Very interesting. And Rashi helps us understand this. I just want to double check the Rashi. So the Torah says, if two men are fighting together, and the wife of one of them approaches to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she stretches forth her hand and grabs hold of his private parts. Okay, it says you shall cut off her hand. Now that doesn't mean literally cut off her hand. There's no way that's what it means. The Torah does not believe in a hand for a hand, eye for an eye. Although it says it, it's not what it means. The rabbis help explain it. It just means that if in the context of a fight, it's not only the wife, it could be anybody. It's just giving a scenario where this might happen. If in the context of a fight, somebody injures someone else, but also adds on, an embarrassing injury, right? So then there's a liability for the damage and for the shame and for the embarrassment that was incurred. Okay, next. In general, when somebody hurts someone else, there are 5 levels of damage. Nezek, tsar, ripoy, sheves, boshes. I'll tell you what they are. Nezek means the damage itself, paying for the damage. Tsar means the pain. Ripoy are the medical bills. Shevet are the lost wages. And boshet is the embarrassment. So we're talking about the last of the 5 in that scenario. All right, it's just giving one scenario, but it could be in any case of injury. The Torah then talks about not having 2 different weights. If you're a merchant, you're selling merchandise by weight, you're not allowed to have an erroneous weight in order to sell less product but claim that it's the full amount. So you can't have a pound weight that's actually less than a pound, because then you're stealing. And then it talks about Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you, and that's how the Torah portion ends. All right, so if I had to summarize today our discussion in the last 2 readings of the Torah portion of Teitzei, many of the laws revolve around compassion, caring about the other, and not being only concerned about ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves and our immediate families. All of that is true. But we can't be self-centered to the point that we don't see the suffering of the other. We can't have blinders up and say, look, I can't deal with anyone else. I can't be bothered. I can only look at my own stuff. Yeah, we're tempted. It's very tempting to say that and to think that, but that's not the Jewish way. It's not the Torah way. The Torah tells us to look out for the other, to be concerned. You have something extra, leave it for someone else. You forgot it, it's a divine providence, let someone else have it. Be more generous than less generous. That's how we're meant to live our lives. All right, thank you for joining me today for an extra large, supersize edition of Daily Power Parsha. Hope you enjoyed it. May we have a wonderful Shabbat, a peaceful Shabbat, and a loving and compassionate Shabbat. Thank you for joining. Any comments, questions, or good wishes?
Thank you.
Shofar?
Shofar, yes. Let me do that. Sandrine, I love it. I love it. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Yes, thank you, Sandrine.
All right. I hate to toot my own horn. Ha! No, not even a thing. Okay, here we go. Shofar. Oh, hey, guys, come on up. My pleasure. All right.
Good Shabbos.
By the way,
Wonderful.
this is how it looks originally. All right, I think. Yes? All right. We'll see you all. Have a good Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Lots of
Shabbat
blessings.
Shalom.